Hello, everyone, and welcome to our workshop on post-traumatic stress disorder. My name is Madeline, and I'm going to be presenting for you today. So I wanted to start out with what is PTSD. So PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is an anxiety disorder that can occur following the experience or witnessing of a traumatic event. So some types of events that you might think of are combat, natural disasters, terrorist incidents, or serious accidents and abuse of any kind. Of course, those are not the only ones that you might experience, but those are some of the most thought of, most common ones that we see. So I want to talk about the signs and symptoms of PTSD. A lot of people actually don't recognize it because especially with military personnel, it's thought of as a normal stress of the job. And that's really not the case. So some of the signs and symptoms are going to be rapid or misplaced anger, hypervigilance. So what that means is if you're in a crowd, even a smaller crowd, you are hyper aware of everything that's going on around you. It makes it almost impossible for you to be out in a crowd. Self-destructive behavior, and that's going to be things like alcoholism, depending on alcohol, or depending on pills. Social isolation, flashbacks, fear, severe anxiety, and mistrust. Continuing on, there's also loss of interest or pleasure in activity. So things that you loved to do before the trauma occurred are not things that you really have any interest in anymore. Guilt. You see this a lot with survivor's guilt in particular. Loneliness, insomnia, nightmares, and emotional detachment. So when you're with your family, you notice that you are kind of detached from what's going on with them. There's also some symptoms that are not as recognizable. Chronic pain is actually a really common one that you see. Panic attacks, headaches, nausea, hallucinations, paranoia, and even suicidal thoughts, since depression is a big part of PTSD as well. There is actually a lot of treatments that are now available. There's prolonged exposure therapy. So what that means is it makes you face your feelings and exposes you to triggers in a safe and controlled environment. There's also cognitive processing therapy, which works to reframe your negative thoughts. So it shifts your mind frame from this is my fault to I didn't cause this. And you can begin to move forward with your life. There's also eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which helps you to process and make sense of the traumas you've experienced. There's also brief eclectic psychotherapy. So what that means is you write down your feelings, your thoughts, what happened, whatever you want, and you send them off. A lot of people do this in a balloon. You can send it off in a bottle, or you can burn it in a fire. However you want to send it off, it's meant to let it go. We also have narrative exposure therapy. So you're going to talk through your traumas to try to make sense of it. Written narrative exposure is writing down the experience, thoughts, and feelings, and you're going to talk about them with a therapist or even just friends and family if you feel like you need to talk to them about that. There's other specific cognitive behavioral therapies, and we can get more into that at a later time. But there's a lot of aids now with the advancements in technology and the prevalence of technology everywhere. You have a lot of aids at your disposal to help with therapy. So you've got PTSD Coach. These are mobile apps on your cell phone. PTSD Coach, PTSD Family Coach, which is a really important one because PTSD really does affect more than just you. It does affect your relationships with your family, especially young children don't always understand what's going on. So it helps to have these aids so that everyone can process through and move forward. There's a mindfulness coach, vet change, CPT coach, so cognitive processing therapy coach, PE coach, prolonged exposure, CBT-I coach, and ACT coach. There's also online resources, things like About Face, which has experiences from your peers, other military personnel, what they've gone through, where they were at when they started treatment, things that have helped them move forward, can all be found on About Face. National Center for PTSD is a great resource as well. PTSD Treatment Decision Aid helps you kind of sort out what types of treatment might be best for you. There's also sites.google.com/view/Veterans Healing Heart and whiteboard videos. There's a lot of whiteboard videos that talk about what the signs and symptoms are, what types of treatments are available, it gives a lot of more information on what PTSD is and what kind of things might have led to having PTSD. So some things I want you to think about when you are talking. So I'm going to give you some time to talk amongst yourselves, and then we'll discuss what you guys have talked about. I want you to think about what kinds of things do you do to deal with situations that might trigger your PTSD when you're out in public or even when you're at home. What has been made more difficult for you? And are there any symptoms that you've experienced that we didn't talk about? Because PTSD is not limited to just what we've talked about. So I'm going to give you guys some time to talk about that. And when we're kind of wrapping things up, we will take some answers so that we can help other people as well with this information. And finally, I would like to do questions. So are there any questions that you have about what you've experienced or what options are available, where you can get help? There's a lot of resources out there and it can be overwhelming at times. So are there any questions? There's also pamphlets at the door that might help as well. Okay, thank you all for coming, and if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. But like I said, a great resource is going to be that sites.google.com, and I'll put that back up for you. So it's sites.google.com/view/Veterans Healing Heart. Thank you so much, and you guys have a great day.